Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to NYFA photo events. Please remember to leave your questions in the Q&A. And today we're so excited and happy to welcome Pixy Liao. And she's coming live from us from Japan today. Pixy, I'm going to do your intro now.
Okay.
And then you can come on and start your talk. Pixy Liao's photos of herself and her male partner, often shown naked and in a submissive pose, aim to smash gender stereotypes, but not to wage a war against men. In her experimental relationship continuing series, Pixy has produced a deadpan examination of perceived reversal of power within the context of heterosexual relationships. She creates situations in which her boyfriend, Moro, appears passive or submissive to her whims to explore the alternative possibilities of female dominance. The series has fun with the expectations of the male gaze. Sometimes Pixy is clothed in the portraits and Moro is naked. She carries him over her shoulder in a fireman's lift, or eats her breakfast off his unclothed body, or stares uncompromisingly into the camera while he places his head, childlike, on her shoulder. These works wryly examine the power of dynamics between artist and muse, prod at conservative gender roles, and document the evolution of their relationship. What makes these images iconic is that Pixy chronicles and enacts efforts to reach a new equilibrium in a partnership that is both artistic and romantic, examining questions of fantasy, desire, and control. Images of Pixy and Moro tend to elicit strong reactions. Some people may find them offensive. Others may find that they scratch an itch in their psyche they didn't know existed. So Pixy, your turn now. We're here if you need us.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you so much for inviting me. So, my name is Pixy Liao, and I used to live in New York until last year, and this year we moved to Tokyo. So I'm talking to you in Tokyo morning. So this is a photograph of me when I was doing a photo shoot, because if you know my work, a lot of my work are stage photography. So I usually like clean up everything in front of camera, but that kind of leaves all the mess, where you cannot see. This is where I was working, wearing the costume and handling the camera. First, I'm going to talk about my longest photo project called Experimental Relationship, which I started in 2007. It all started with me meeting my partner Moro when I was studying photography in the University of Memphis. And on the first day of school, I already saw him. And I had, let's say, like a crush on him, but I don't know who he is, or I never talked to him. But I just know he's a music student. So I was always thinking about this boy. So I was always kind of like hoping that I will bump into him again on campus. Sometimes I would just go to the music building hoping I can see him again. So 1 year after I first saw him, one day I was holding my camera and I think I have some poster for some show, and I would just say, oh, why don't I just go to the music building again? And when I went there, I saw him. I was very excited. And luckily I had a camera with me. So I just had, I would just walked up to him. I said, I'm a photographer. I'm looking for a model. Can I take some photo of you? And he just said yes. And then this was the very first photograph that I took of him. And that's how our relationship started. I take a picture of him. And very soon, because I really like him, I want to have excuses to see him more. So I always say, oh, I have this photo assignment. Can you help me? Can I come take a picture of you? So later on, like in a couple months, he become my boyfriend. Once he become my boyfriend, it becomes even more, even convenient for me to photograph him. And I have so many photo assignments. I think I have a large format, some nighttime photography. And one of the photo idea I have was I want to do a murder scene photograph. So I asked him, I say, Mara, can you play the dead body for me? And then you're gonna take off your clothes and get into my suitcase and let me take a picture of you. And he just did it. So when I was showing this photograph to my photo class, and all the classmates and my teacher, they become very quiet. And after a couple of minutes, some time, my teacher said, Pixie, are you treating moral okay? I was like, yeah, why? Like, of course, it's my boyfriend. We're very good. But somehow I never thought people would think because of photograph like this, people would think like our relationship is somehow not very good or like I am mistreating him. But I thought it was very natural because it's my boyfriend and just a photograph and no harm done through a photograph. When he asked me, that kind of made me realize that many people will think like this is not a usual photograph like your boyfriend would model for you for. So I suddenly think maybe my boyfriend is very special, a very, very good boyfriend. And I think maybe I should turn the camera back to us and photograph the two of us together. And maybe in this way, people will realize, oh, this is the two couple doing photography together. And somehow I think it's very naturally how we kind of used to each other because our relationship really started with taking photos. So I start to take photos of two of us together. And once I started that, I suddenly feel like I found my project. This is one of the earliest photo of this project. I think maybe one of the first 5 images. And what I really like about this photograph is, first of all, this photograph is inspired by this very famous French painting when one woman's pitching the other woman's nipple. And I always love this painting. And I want to do some photos that's paying tribute to that. So I did this photograph. And when I saw this image, and you will notice Mara is the one who's holding a cable release. And the reason for that is my cable release, the air bulb is very, very tight. So I didn't have enough hand power to squeeze the air bulb and take the picture. So I handed to him and said, Mara, take a picture for me. But when I see it, you see like when I almost feel like I was pinching his nipple, almost like I'm remote controlling him. And then he will squeeze the air bulb and clicks the shutter and the cable will go outside the frame. I feel like the cable there, it's a very important piece of clue in this image. It kind of finishes the whole cycle of this image. I feel like without it, it won't be that simple because it is there to tell people how we take the picture, and at the same time, it kind of make the image kind of like a full circle. So I feel like many photographers, when they take photo, they really like to hide how they take the picture. But since I have this photo from the very beginning, I realized that there's a way that I can use cable release in a meaningful way in my photograph. So later on, you'll see in my image, I usually try to leave the cable release if there's a way I can somehow use it. So I don't really try to hide my cable race most of the time. This is another photograph I really like, also a very early photo. And this is where we used to sleep as international students, and we were very poor, and we picked up the mattresses on the street we were not supposed to, and stack them to make our own bed. And when I was looking at these stacks of mattresses, and I think about my this new boyfriend that I have, and I have this feeling. He reminded me of the story, The Princess on the Pea. The moral is he's 5 years younger than me. So at the time I was a grad student and he's an undergrad. Another thing I think very special about him, I feel he's very sensitive kind of boyfriend. It's like more sensitive than any boyfriend I had before. Almost feel like sometimes feel like he's a princess that needs protection, and sometimes I need to be this knight to protect him. But at the same time, my existence could be the tiny little pea that's underneath him that make him very uncomfortable. So that's why I took this picture. And one thing I really love about photography and what I love about doing this project is when I was making this, before I would make this photograph, I was imagining how this photograph is going to look like. So we're thinking, oh, we're both Asian and we both had very, very short hair. So we're thinking, like, imagine we're lying naked on top of each other. If we don't show the man or woman's body parts, people won't be able to tell who's man and who's woman. So that's all my ideal belief before. Like, I think men and women just were the same. But when I see this photograph, it kind of corrected me, because even without seeing anything, just by the body hair or the curves of body, you can tell who's man and who's woman. And that's something I really love about photography. It can compare the reality, the facts, with my own imagination and kind of correct it for me. And this is something I really like about making photos. And also, a lot of my photographs are inspired by images that impacted me, either from classic painting or mass media, like this Rolling Stone magazine cover of Janet Jackson. I saw it when I was a teenage girl in China. I was very shocked by her. I thought, she's so brave. She's top naked on the cover of the magazine. And I just vividly remember this huge pair of male hands covering her boobs. And I really love this photograph, and I want to make a version for myself. So I did this with Moral. And so this is one photograph, but I think my hands is too, I don't know, not feminine enough. Cannot tell man or woman. So I turned to the side to do another one. So these two are a pair. So this one is every man is a woman to keep him on track. And this one's like I told you so. Just like a pair photograph. And sometimes I would do like a pair photograph or a group of images, because I think sometimes an idea, it can be played in both ways. Like this idea that I always have for an ideal relationship is I always hope that I will have a good relationship where me and my partner can become this one unit. And when two people become one unit, you can do greater things together than two individuals do their separate things. So this is, we're trying to live as a conjoined twins. And this photograph was taken after we graduated and we moved to Bushwick. And this was like the only photograph that after I showed the image to Morrow, he said he didn't like this photograph. Morrow has always been a very supportive photo partner for me. He almost never rejected me or say he didn't like my photograph, but he said he didn't like this one. I was like very worried. I said, oh my God, that moment finally came. Like he won't allow me to do those crazy photo again. And Mara said, I didn't have a good hair that day. And I was like, okay, yes, you don't have good hair that day. So, in a way, when he said that, I'm very relieved because I feel like I really understand why I can do this photo project with him. Because Moro, I think, is a very, very special man. He has his own set of principles. And those principles has nothing to do with other people imagine what men should feel or how they should feel. It's all his own rules. So as long as I can respect his rules and also maybe negotiate with him, and then I can do almost any ideas that I want in the photograph. So eventually I really convinced him and say, oh my word, this is a photograph that I like. I think it's pure art. And also I didn't have a very good hair that day. So eventually he was kind enough to let me keep showing this photograph. Also one of my favorite. And this one, homemade sushi. And this one was just a photograph that I started from an online joke that I heard. There was this woman before she goes to work. She saw her husband lying on the bed, sound asleep, and she think, oh, he looks so cute. So she decided to tie him up on the bed with the blanket and tied with the belt on the outside. And then she left for work. And after she come back from work, her husband was tied up on the bed for the whole day and his face is all red and he's very pissed. And I was just laughing at this joke. And I was like, I feel this woman, like very strangely. I feel the urge, like I somehow can understand why she wanted to tie him up in the first place because he was just too adorable, sound asleep in the morning. I really feel like I want to do the same thing, but at the same time, it is not very good to do it to a person for a whole day. So I decided to make it into a photograph. So maybe take 15 minutes. And also part of this idea coming from a food trend from Japan at the time. So it was like you can have a sushi banquet on top of a naked female body. So there's like a naked woman lying in the middle of a dining room. Everybody's surrounding him, just picking up sushi from her body directly. So that was another part of the idea of this photograph. And this photograph was a little special for me because all my photographs, usually they are very bright and colorful, but this one is kind of dark, very moody. And I think for me personally, it's a kind of like a turning point of my project because at that time I think just started living in New York. So before that, when we were in school, I was a grad student, he was an undergrad, and we had like huge difference in our experiences. I had work experience before when I was in China, but for him, he was just like graduated from high school and come to US for undergrad. So at the time, I felt like I was the adult. I have so much authority, and I protect him, I direct him, and all my photos are like that. And I'm very dominant in all my photographs. But at that time, when we just moved to New York, we all have to look for a job, and we all have to kind of start make a living as this new person in the American society. So suddenly I felt like our differences are gone. Like I kind of lost my role in our relationship. And I was looking at all of my photo before. I was thinking, was I being too dominant, and would I have a negative effect on our relationship, and also maybe on moral growth as a man in the society? So I had a lot of doubts and negative thoughts on relationship or project. So I start to think differently, and this was the one of the photo that reflects my kind of feeling at the time. And this one is a kind of rare outdoor photo for me, because all my photo requires a lot of like nudity and outdoor. So was when I had my first artist residency in Woodstock, the CPW, and we were living in the woods, so we were able to go to the nature early in the morning without anybody see us, so we can just take off clothes very quickly and take a picture. And I really enjoy that. But at the same time, every time we photograph outdoor, I feel a lot of pressure because I just so worry about being seen by other people. And this photograph is another photograph that's a kind of teaching me how to do photographs. So all my photographs very outdoor, very staged. And before this photograph, I always think, I only want to have a photograph that looks like what I had in mind exactly. I didn't want anything else. I think as close to my ideas originally would be the best. But this was taken during the photo shoot, and I accidentally touched his face, and he suddenly gave me this look that I recognized. And this is the eye look he sometimes give me in our real life. And I just very touched by his look. So I took this picture. So it's a spontaneous photograph for me, almost never in my project. But I really love this photograph. I feel like that his eye look is like telling something, and it makes the photograph come alive. I feel like compared to all previous photograph, this photograph has more life to it. And that kind of taught me that when I was doing a photo shoot, I cannot be too controlling and trying to only realize the things that I had in mind. I need to allow real moral to come into my photograph too. So I need him to be more natural. Like, from this photo on, I start to realize, during the photo shoot, I need to have less control, and sometimes just, ask him to improvise on the photo shoot, and it becomes more and more obvious later on in my project. And this photograph is starting as a mistake for me, because on this photograph, on top of the image, there's a lot of white space. And when I was imagining this photograph again, my position should be much higher. But during the photo shoot, even though he's very skinny, he is much heavier than I thought. I just couldn't hold his body weight, and he kept pushing me down. So when I saw these images, I feel like, oh my God, the composition's ruined. I couldn't hold my position. And it took me a couple of months to figure out this is actually a very, very good photograph, because this photograph revealed a truth that I couldn't hold his weight the way I wanted to be. And it reminded me, like in our life, like in our real relationship, a lot of time I just think myself as this very strong, independent woman that I can handle all the burden in this relationship for the two of us. But a lot of time I'm also struggling. And I think this is a perfect representation of that. So after I realized that, I titled it like, it's never been easy to carry. And this has been one of very important photograph in this project. And this one was shot through a mirror. So if anyone's interested in what kind of camera I use, this is the same camera that I had been using since I was from the very beginning of this project when I was in school. So it's a Bronica ETRSI small medium format camera. It's not too big, it's not the best camera in the world, but at the same time, I feel like it's just enough for me. It's not too heavy and I'm very used to it. So when I go to do photo shoot, I know what to do. I don't need to think too much about how to handle it. And I can just focus on making the image. Oh, and this is also a pair. Like I usually only shoot this version, but these days I start to like this version too, just because I feel like, you know, the slight difference in my eye look. This one looks a lot more formal, like I'm more steady in my eye look, but like this one, I'm kind of looked away. I feel like I'm a little bit tender, and also he's even more fragile without the clothes and with his eyes closed. So yeah, I sometimes like doing the same photo shoot. I would do like maybe 3 to 5 different versions, slightly different expression or like slight change. And I think editing, it really depends on how you feel at the moment and what you can understand at the moment. So in the very beginning, when I just did photograph, maybe this is like 11 years ago. So I was all focused on, you know, I need to be strong. But now I think, oh, I like it. I like tender and he's more fragile and it's more comfortable. It all depends on my current mood and how I see these images are different. This is okay, it's gonna get a little faster. And yeah, I'm just, you know, doing Photoshop, look for anything in the location, and sometimes I find interesting props to play with. Like, you know, this hammer. And this photograph was like a byproduct of my other project. I have another conceptual project that I want to have a collection of penises. Moro, he's a very creative person. He's very good at sewing too. So I gave him an assignment. I said, Moro, I want to have a collection of penises, and they can be any shape, any size, as long as they're soft and they're pink. So I gave him some like fabric and material, and he started making all these kind of crazy penises for me. And this is my longest penis called the long sausage, because I always dream about like I'm having a super long penis is longer than any man in the world. And this is mine. This photograph for me is a personal milestone because if you remember in the very beginning of the project, he was the one holding a cable release, and I didn't even have enough hand power to take my own picture. And that's something I always wish that I have, but I have to admit I don't have, is the physical power. Because I always feel like men and women, like women are very, very strong. Like we sometimes can be stronger than men, but the only thing that I have to admit is I don't have enough physical power compared to men. So I think around this time I start to realize I wish I'm a little more stronger. So I start to work out, and by the time of this photograph, I was able to lift him up on my shoulder. Not for long, just for a couple of seconds to finish the photograph, but I was very proud of myself. And this photograph is also an idea of showing off my arm muscle, and you know, I can squeeze my own cable release. And this is also inspired by this movie poster, which is a Sexy Fury. And in this type of Japanese movies, and it's about Japanese yakuza, like mafia, but the boss is always women. And so when these bad women in the film, they always like to dress up beautiful kimonos, and they will use their body to distract the enemy, and when the enemy is distracted, they start to waving the knife and start to kill. And sometimes nowadays I do like a mini series with a project. So this is a set for bad wrestling, because I really love watching wrestling photographs. I feel like there's a similarity between two wrestlers and two lovers, especially when lovers on bed, they're almost like having a sports, and there's a lot of like the two wrestlers, they have a mutual intention to control each other, which I think sometimes your partner, like in the relationship, they also have this kind of tendency, like they want to control each other. So this is about that. And this one was also inspired by this my favorite painting from Baltis, and I really love this little people in this painting. I feel like she's like really evil and trying to shine a light on this sleeping woman, and I feel very same when I see more just sleeping and the day is up, and I just want to open the curtain and just trying to be this little person. These are, and this one is inspired by this silent film by Buster Keaton, The Haunted House. Oh, and so I was the person underneath the chair, so I was hugging him. So that was the movie was my inspiration, but one of my friend from a university in Belgium, and she told me that remind her the photos of the hidden mothers in the 19th century. Like she has a collection of these babies, because at the time the photography takes so long to take a picture, so the mother will like wear some fabric to disappear in the background, but holding the baby to keep it still. And I think even though I wasn't really thinking about this, but I think somehow it is related to my photograph. And I have another photo project almost the same time, but for this project, my kind of idea changes, because I think for my last project, many people think about it. They will look at a photo, who are these two people in the photograph, what they are doing, and then they're gonna decide if they like this type of relationship or not. And if they like it, they like this project. If they don't, they don't. To have a photograph that people can respond directly to the image itself. And also, I'm tired of the composition of two people. It's usually you have to tell the story, you have to be very pulled back, like full body, half body. I want to do something really simple about composition, like it's all about just body parts and color and composition, very cropped in images. So this is for the eyes only. This project is almost like a very private view that you see in a couple's daily life. But it's just it's not as obvious as relationship projects. It's really not about who are two people in the photograph, but it's a lot more vague and open. And so people can just react to the image and not to think too much about, all the ideas behind. But at the same time, I think I'm keeping my personality in this photo project too. Okay. Almost to the end. Okay. In the end, I just want to talk a little bit about photo books, because I think photo books for any photographers are very important. And also for me personally in my career, photo books is very important. So I made this Pimo dictionary with my partner Moro. And because he's Japanese, I'm Chinese, and we speak to each other in English. So in our daily language, we kind of combine the three language into one, and we have special words that only we two understand. So we collected these words together, and we write a description and how we use it, and that becomes this Pimo dictionary. So this is not a typical photo book, but it's like a dictionary between the two of us. And I think that might work for most of couples, because I think even if you're speaking the same language, you still have many special words only the two of you will know. And also I want to show you this, my first photo project book for the first 10, 11 years of my work, published in 2018, which was very, very helpful for my career because it helped many people to get to know about my work. When a photographer is showing their photos in an exhibition, you only show maybe up to 12 images usually. So especially for me, having this, like, right now it's 18 years of long-term project, it's very hard to show the full picture of what you are doing. So I think a photo project is a very good way for you to put them together, make your own edits, and show the world the whole project as one thing. And this was 2007 to 2017, and now I'm trying to start working on the next project, next book after this, because this is the volume 1. Okay, so that's it. I think I'm gonna end my share now, and we can start this question.
Great. Hey, Pixie. Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm David Major. I chair the photography program at the NYFA Academy. Pixie, thank you so much for walking us through your projects. That was really fun. I mean, I was literally laughing out loud at a couple of the images there, like PlayStation. That was awesome. Right? So sort of tongue in cheek, really kind of clever. I have a bunch of my own questions, but I want to encourage our folks who are attending to put questions into the Q&A, please. And I'm happy to share those with Pixie. So let's start. I want to talk about experimental relationship for a bit. And there are a lot of sort of key ideas that are happening there that you didn't mention in what you were talking about and how you were talking about them. And the things that I'd love to sort of talk with you about are the eye contact and the deliberateness of that in the majority of those images, right? One or both of the figures are looking at camera in each one of those. And that sort of tells a piece of the story also. And you talked how important the cable release was and that it became this element. And I totally agree with you. I think, it almost forces us to realize that one of the figures in there is deliberately making this photograph, right? As opposed to it being a snapshot or a casual shot of a couple in a home, or that the photographer is outside of the scene. There's really, I think, intentionality behind that. Or at least that's the way I read it, to imply that yes, this is indeed a self-portrait of some sort. But talk to us a little bit about the choice behind the eye contact across really the vast majority of the images in that series.
Yeah, I think eye contact is very important because I think when we're making photograph, Moral always asks me, where do you want me to look at? And sometimes I say, look at the camera. Sometimes I look away or look at me. And I feel like the eye contact is because there are two people in these images, and sometimes I want people to think as me, or sometimes I want people to think as us, or sometimes I want people to think as him. So because of how I want people to enter the image is different, or who is more dominant in the image, that I would decide who is looking at a camera. And a lot of time, because I am the maker, like for these images, I think as me. So a lot of time you'll see the images. I am the one who's looking straight at the camera. But for him, sometimes I would think, depending on how strong his role is, sometimes it's more like a dismissive role than I will ask him to look at me or look away. But sometimes I feel like people need to feel him too. I will ask him to look at the camera.
Mm,
Like,
okay. Yeah. And so just sort of follow up with that, you know, excuse me, you're guiding who's looking where, but I'm sure you're also talking about the emotion on the face. And most of them are quite deadpan, right? And, which is a really interesting way to sort of show relationships with that kind of deadpan look. Can you talk about the decision, to sort of push that idea?
yeah, I, I somehow don't really ask for smiling in a photograph. I mean, that's actually a very interesting question because people always say my photographs are very humorous, but now you think about it, like our expressions are very serious. Uh, I think one of the reasons I always feel like a smiling photograph will ruin ruin the meaning of the photograph that I want to express. And
Mm.
sometimes I feel like when two people put like a very like serious face, they it kind of be more open. It can be either way. And I feel like instead of like a smiling photograph, maybe there's only one explanation. But when you're serious, it can be funny in a way, like
Oh,
it
absolutely.
can,
I
but
mean,
yeah, right.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, so I think I choose to be like not showing too much emotion on the photograph, but at the same time, I feel like it can lead to more open uh, readings to the images.
yeah. So it's interesting about what you said about not showing too much emotion in the photograph because I think there's, at least for me, I get a lot of emotion from them, but it's from the body language and it's about the relationship between the bodies. And so the juxtaposition of the deadpan face to what the bodies are doing and how they're interacting. I agree. Oftentimes it's humorous, but it also, I feel like, makes me sort of pay attention more to how the bodies are actually interacting. Right? Yeah,
Mm,
cool. All right, so we have a
yes.
couple of questions in the Q&A. Um, so from one of our alumni, Montez, your work feels beautifully bold, especially in how it flips traditional gender roles and highlights feminine power. From my understanding, many Asian cultures tend to emphasize male authority and privacy around sexuality. Do you see your photography as a way of challenging these cultural norms, or is it more about expressing something personal between you and your partner? Great question.
Oh, yeah, I think it's a very good question. I think the reason why I made this project, part of it is self-exploration. Because I grew up in China, I completely understand mm, like in Asian cultures, we don't really have very strong women roles. Usually men roles are more dominant in a society or in family. And also people do not talk about sexual things openly. Um, so when I was uh, in the US starting to study photography, I was trying to figure out what type of photography I want to do. At the same time, um, I'm also trying to figure out who I am as a woman. And when I was in China, I always felt like I'm not happy with the situation of women or being women in China. But at the same time, I didn't know what to do. But and the when I was in the United States, when I met Morrow, and at the time I was away from my family, from my peers, from my friends, I felt there's kind of like celebration in freedom, or and I was free to do whatever I wanted to do, and I was trying out like what kind of woman I can be or I want to be. And so I think, yes, I think it is in a way of challenging the cultural norms in Asia. But more importantly, I feel like through this project, I was developing myself as a woman. Yes, it's a
Thanks.
very good question.
Yeah, great question. Great answer too. So we have another great question in the Q&A. As an artist, how do you make sure your bold vision stays your vision and does not seek validation from others?
Huh.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. I never thought about that. But maybe because like when I was making a photograph, I think the validation from others is not in my mind when I was making the images, because the reason I do this project is because I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy seeing the images realized to the images in my mind. I just enjoy making to a real photograph. So I think whether people understand or not, and leave it to the future, because you can never expect other people to fully understand you because they are not you. They don't fully see or think the way you are, and that's completely fine. But what I want to do is I want to see the image in real life. Yeah, I guess just not to think about it too much.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great reason to keep producing work within a project, right? Is to sort of see what you have happening here and, not really thinking about needing that kind of validation. And there's a huge strength in that, right? I think that's not every artist
Mm-hmm.
can say that they're able to do that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to back up a little bit. I started thinking when you jumped from the photograph of Mara in the suitcase, and we're talking about how
Mm-hmm.
your classmates and your professor were like, well, is everything okay? Like, what's happening here, right? And then
Yeah.
we start looking at the experimental relationship. Can you talk to us about that jump from photographing someone else to
Mm-hmm.
the self-portrait idea? Like, how did you make
Mm.
that leap from one to the other?
Yeah. Before meeting Maro, I did self-portrait too, and I did landscaping, all these other type of photo projects. And while doing that, I at the same time I enjoy making those photographs, but at the same time I feel like these photograph doesn't have to be made by me. It can be made by anybody, because I didn't really find myself in the photograph.
Mm.
And but when I was making photo of Moro in the suitcase, at the time in the beginning, I just feel like I found this boyfriend who is super nice and can be photographed anytime, anyway. And a lot of time I use him as a prop in the images, not even as a model, like a prop, like a dead body or something. But when I realized that I can take a picture of two of us, because I feel like, I want to explain this relationship, that I have this awesome boyfriend who's super suitable for photograph, and I can do different photograph. I want to turn the camera to us to explain like this is just normal for us. This is how we like interact with each other. And so that was the idea there. And then slowly it becomes like I realized I cannot just use him as a prop or a model in the photograph. He needs to be himself to make this project more a real relationship. I think that was the change there, like how I was turning from shooting and then going back to or just first trying to explain that it's normal.
Right.
I have a
Right.
question if you're
Go ahead, Nancy.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I just wanted to say that the work is so touching and at the same time so funny in its own way. And the levels and the depth of the images, I think, is just extraordinary. So that's why I've been a fan for so long. But anyway, what I really wanted to ask you is, could you tell us more about your music and your band together?
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. Yes, we have a band together. Moro, he studied music and he's a musician. And we have a band, just two of us called PIMO, Pimo. And in the band, he does everything else, and I can only contribute to singing and writing a little bit lyrics. My singing wasn't very good. I'm a very amateur singer, but I feel like in a band, our relationship is completely flipped. He becomes the leader, and I become the one who kind of help him to realize his music ideas. For me, I really enjoy it because I feel like it's a very good opportunity for me to observe or to feel our relationship in the opposite way, that I can think about his feeling when I was doing photos too. And at the same time, I feel like it's kind of me paying my debt to him, like trying to, you know, make good with him, and so he can keep working for my photos too. Yeah, so that's the secret of our relationship.
Nice balance there. We have one more question in the Q&A. So this Christian has noticed that, or is asking if your favorite compositional idea is symmetry, as well as sort of, he's calling it highlight tonality. And he's asking, is there a symbolic meaning for you, for the symmetry and for the way you're lighting?
I think I was agree like that my favorite composition is symmetry. I think that's just me, I think, because before I was a photographer, I was a graphic designer, and at the time it's already, I think I really like symmetrical images, and I think a lot of times it's more about balance for me. And the other thing that you asked was the high tonality images, and I think that come from my study of photography when I was in Memphis. And I don't know, I feel like from moving from Shanghai to Memphis, when I was in China, I did a little bit photograph too, like I take pictures. But my pictures, they're all like kind of grayish because the air pollution in China is so bad. So when I was in Memphis, there's a lot of sunshine, and I really enjoy those really bright colors under a lot of sunshine. So I think later on, that just become one of the visual features in my photograph. Like I really rely on like a lot of natural light in my photograph, and I think bright images, colorful images, it's kind of in sync with my idea of relationship to be upbeat and happy. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely adds to the feeling of the whole, the project. I think light really tells just as much of the story as what's happening within the image. So, yeah, great. All right, we are just about at the top of the hour. We've gotten through all the Q&A questions. Pixie, this was wonderful. And one final question about your books. Where can we find them? Where are they selling?
I actually, because this word was published 2018, there's maybe a little here and there online, but I think most of them are sold out. And I'm talking with my publisher, hoping to do like a reprint of this photo book. And also I'm working on the next one in the next 2 years. So hopefully a new one will come out. So
That's great. Well, I will look for them. Thank you so much for being with
Yeah.
us and for,
Yeah,
calling
Pixie,
from Japan.
this
This
was
is
wonderful,
fantastic.
really wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And it's a great pleasure like talking with all of you and meeting you online, even though it's not in person.
It was my
But
joy, really.
yeah.
Yep, absolutely a pleasure. Thank you, Pixie. Thank you, Nancy. And thank you,
Okay.
everyone, for being here.